In 1995, a 28-year-old trader, sitting in an office in Singapore, had destroyed a bank that had survived for 233 years, without hacking the system, without robbing the bank directly. There was no political protection or criminal network behind him. He had simply made bad trades, then hidden them, then made even bigger trades to cover the first losses. And by the time someone realized what was happening, it was already over. £827 million had vanished. An institution older than most modern states had been wiped away in a matter of days. The most disturbing part of this story is not what Nick Leeson did. It's that no one noticed for so long. Barings Bank had been founded in 1762. It had helped finance the Napoleonic Wars. It had played a role in the Louisiana Purchase. The British royal family banked there. When people said Barings, what they meant was permanence. Nick Leeson came from none of that. A working-class background, no elite connections. But he was intelligent, ambitious, and unusually good at something most people in finance only notice when it breaks: operations, the back office, the mechanism behind the curtain, the machine behind the illusion. He joined Barings in 1989, rose quickly, and was assigned to Singapore to run its futures operations. He was young. He was trusted. He was making serious money for the bank. Then, in 1992, a small trading error occurred, a loss of around £20,000. It wasn't catastrophic, not even close. But instead of reporting it, Leeson hid it in an error account number 88888. That was the moment this story truly began. Because the moment you hide the first loss, the next decision is already waiting for you. Do you confess? Or do you keep going? Leeson kept going. His official job was low-risk arbitrage, taking advantage of small price differences between the futures markets in Singapore and Japan. Boring, mechanical, safe. But the hidden losses kept growing. And to cover them, Leeson began taking directional positions. He was gambling that the Japanese market would rise enough to save him. For a while, it worked. His reported profits were extraordinary. London saw the results. A rising star in Singapore. And success makes people stop asking questions. Then, on January 17th, 1995, an earthquake struck Kobe, Japan. More than 6,000 people died. The Nikkei fell sharply. Leeson had been betting the exact opposite. The losses, inside, account 88888 exploded. Instead of stopping, he pushed even further. Believing he could trade his way back to safety, he began buying enormous amounts of Nikkei futures contracts. At the peak, his positions had become so large that they were visibly moving the Japanese futures market. Other traders had noticed, but no one knew who was behind it. Meanwhile, in London, Barings kept sending him money. Leeson told them it was needed for legitimate margin calls. They sent it. Hundreds of millions of pounds were flowing into positions that were already impossible to save. A bank that had stood for centuries was sending enormous sums of money to cover losses it didn't even know existed, to a man it trusted completely, in an office it did not properly supervise. And no one was asking the right questions. By the end of February 1995, the losses had blown straight through Barings' entire capital. On February 23rd, Leeson did not come into the office. He left a note on his desk. 2 words: "I'm sorry." Then he ran. Barings executives spent the weekend desperately searching for a buyer. The Bank of England tried to coordinate a rescue. Every major institution was approached. They all looked at the books. They all backed away. On February 26th, Barings Bank collapsed. 233 years of history. Sold to ING for £1. Leeson was arrested in Frankfurt, extradited to Singapore, and sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. He served 4. He wrote a book. A film was made about him. And in one of history's darker ironies, he became a speaker at corporate events on risk management. But this story was never only about Nick Leeson. That is the version people tell to comfort themselves. One bad man, one rogue trader, one isolated scandal. That is not what happened. Barings collapsed because the system around him had been built to trust performance more than process. Leeson was controlling both the trades and the settlement of those trades. In other words, he was checking his own homework. The most basic control mechanisms were weak, ignored, or bypassed. And the deeper truth is even worse. How do you hide 827 million pounds? Not with genius, not with perfect deception. You hide it because people want to believe the profits are real. Because questioning a highly profitable employee is uncomfortable. Because everyone assumes that someone else is already watching. After Barings, the rules were tightened. Officially, lessons were learned. 3 years later, long-term capital management nearly destabilized the global financial system. 10 years after that, Lehman Brothers. The names are different. The instruments are different. The structure is the same. There is always a gap somewhere. Between the person taking the risk and the person supposed to monitor it. Between the numbers on a screen and the reality they claim to represent. Nick Leeson did not create that gap. He found it. And that is what should disturb you. Not that one man destroyed Barings, but that Barings was that easy to destroy. Sleep well.